So here we are. Can you believe it? You're in your fourth week of graduate program here. You survived so far, and that's great. Yeah, maybe it's an easier week for you. I don't know. We're going to look at a little fewer concepts. We're going to talk about critical thinking. That's the skill you're going to be developing in your graduate program, and you're going to be using it completely through till the day you graduate and beyond. Once you start critically thinking, you can't quit. You'll be taking it into the rest of your life. You're going to apply critical thinking skills this week to an article or case. Did you know that critical thinking is even in the Bible? That there are proverbs that suggest that things like the simple believes everything, that the prudent gives thought to his steps. And that's a lot of what critical thinking is looking at something you're told, looking at something you're read, looking at the situation you see happen, and really try to figure out what's really going on there. And I'm not saying be totally cynical about things, but it's learning how to dig beyond the superficial and not take everything strictly as face value. And the Proverbs even says the one who states his case first seems right until the other come along and examines him. And that's a lot of what critical thinking is about. It's even about critically evaluating ideas that we even get on our own. Not just critically evaluating other people's ideas, but our own. So what is critical thinking? Critical thinking, think of it as like playing detective with your own thoughts. Now, if you're like me, you like a good detective story. I like detective stories because I like figuring things out. Okay. And it's like figuring things out with our own thoughts and evaluating them. Critical thinking, therefore, is a process. It's an act. You see, that's a verb. It's something you actively do. You actively analyze, interpret, evaluate, and synthesize information. You say, well, Dr. Meadows, what do those things mean? What do we mean when we say those things? It's a mouthful. Analyzing is breaking down the information, looking at each piece, like evidence at a crime scene. You've all seen the police procedural programs where the investigative team comes in and looks over the situation, looks for where everything's laying at the crime scene. They look at who came and went. They look at where things are laying, looking for physical evidence that they find or written evidence. Well, that's what analyzing is. It's not just taking information and swallowing it whole. It's really breaking it down into its pieces and seeing how those pieces fit together and if they even make sense together. Okay. Interpreting, and that leads us to interpreting, which is figuring out the meaning of what we say. It's kind of like decoding a message. Okay. Is figuring out, if we find a piece of evidence, what does that suggest beyond just the fact that the evidence was there? Okay. That's what interpreting is about. Evaluating is about assessing the credibility and strength of the information. We often do that in business. If somebody presents me with an idea or situation, I will evaluate it by some criteria. Does that suggestion or recommendation by my coworker seem credible? Does it reflect what's really going on? Does that person have good, strong information that they're basing their recommendation on? I might evaluate it by saying, in the past, when we've done something like this, were the results good? Did we get the results? Do we evaluate on the criteria of doability? Do we have the ability to do something? So there are many. Evaluating always involves looking at an idea against criteria, against an idea of what should be, and juxtaposing the idea and to see if the idea matches and has strength based on the criteria that you're evaluating it against. You always have to have criteria to evaluate it against. And finally is synthesizing. Synthesizing is pulling together pieces of information and putting a bigger picture together. And you'll be doing some of that in graduate work as well. You'll be taking an idea from organizational behavior, an idea from human resources, and an idea from strategic planning, and putting them together to come up with a new course of action. And that's called synthesizing, comes from word synthesis, or putting things together. And critical thinking often involves putting new ideas together. And you say, well, I'm not good at these yet. Well, you can get better. Like anything else, like playing the piano, playing the guitar, playing the drums, playing baseball, playing golf. You get better with practice. Critical thinking, remember, let's go back. Critical thinking is a process. That means it is an activity. It's something you can do. It's something you can learn. If it's a skill, it can be learned with practice. If it's a skill, then you can get better at it over time. And you will, the more you've learned about critical thinking and the more you try to think critically, get beyond the superficial. As a critical thinker, you're going to be learning to do things like be open-minded, but don't be gullible. In other words, don't believe the first thing you hear. Be skeptical, but not cynical. Cynical is a bad mental attitude. Okay, skeptical says, let's test it. Cynical assumes everybody's lying and out for their own good. Okay, so there's a difference between the two. We want to be skeptical, but not cynical. We want to be objective. We want to give everything its due and its hearing, but we don't want to be ungrounded. We're going to have you have to have some grounding facts or some grounding principles and values. Go back to that idea of comparing to a criteria. You have to be grounded so you have a criteria by which to evaluate the ideas you come into contact with. You have to be curious, but not unfocused. Curiosity is a good thing. A curiosity leads you to think, what's next, or what else can we find out? Unfocused means you're bouncing off the walls like a ping pong ball, okay? And going from idea to the other. Try to connect ideas. Don't just bounce between them. And you want to be analytical. You want to analyze things, test them, but you don't want to be obsessed with that. At some point, you're going to have to choose a course of action. You can't be so obsessed by the analysis that you are ineffective as a decision maker. So why do I want to think critically in the first place? Well, it helps me get better at problem solving. And as the resources that you read this week about critical thinking show you, that's one of the objectives we have to build and use. You get better at problem solving. You get better at finding innovative solutions. And as a person with a business graduate degree, you're going to be spending a lot of your life solving problems and finding innovative solutions. So what we're doing is trying to prepare you for life beyond graduate school. It promotes independent thinking. It helps you think on your own. Okay. It increases academic and professional success. The better you are as a critical thinker, the easier these courses are going to get as you go along. Okay. Thinking critically improves communication skills, because once you have that idea in your head that you've devised by critically thinking, you're going to have to figure out how to communicate it to other people. So it forces you to better communication. And it creates a pro-growth mindset. You become better at thinking about application of new ideas. So what can I do to develop better critical thinking skills? Well, I can think and read actively, read voraciously, okay? Ask questions and get clarifications. When you don't know something, seek clarification. When something seems fuzzy, ask somebody. Ask Axio if you can't find anybody else to ask, okay? Ask questions, get clarifications, ask until it is clear to you. Reflect. That means to take time and think about what you've experienced. Reflection is a very important activity for a leader to engage in, because it allows them to self-assess. By reflection, you actually question yourself, your own assumptions, your own decisions, your own actions, and you get better. Okay. Discuss and debate with people. I've dealt with people over the years that look at discussion and especially debate with people with other views as a bad thing. No, discussing things respectfully with people with other views will help you grow. You will find out new things. You will at least understand how some other people think about something, and it will sharpen that skill within you. And you could play analytical games. Believe it or not, your mind gets used to solving problems and solving puzzles. It actually your brain begins to apply that skill to other things as you go along. To think critically, we want to avoid some common biases and fallacies. Cognitive biases are tricks our own brains play on us because we like to think we're logical, rational people. Give me the facts, I can always come up with a good answer or a good plan. Not so fast. Your brain, we are humans, and our brains play tricks on us to make us believe things that aren't there. Okay. Some of the most common are, and these are fascinating, there's dozens of them. Some of the most common that you'll run into, especially in grad work and as you're learning to be a critical thinker, one of them is confirmation bias. And that means I have an idea, now I'm only going to go out and look for information that supports my pre-existing assumption. In other words, I never challenge what I'm thinking. Okay. Now, there may be a whole world of information that challenges or contradicts what I'm thinking, but I'll never find it because I'm never looking for it. Okay. It's sort of like the old joke about, the burglar can never find a policeman, because he's never looking for one. Okay. Let's look at anchoring bias. That means you grab that first piece of information you find and you use that as the standard by which you evaluate everything else. That could be a mistake if you get the wrong piece of information first, or that first piece of information is not very reliable, or just is maybe it's just very limited. Look more broadly out there and avoid that anchoring bias. Don't evaluate everything by the first piece of information you find. There's the availability heuristic. A heuristic means a rule of thumb. Okay. And sometimes we do that by putting too much reliance on information that's easy to find. And just because it was easy to find doesn't mean it's all there is, or it tells the complete story. So watch out about availability heuristic. There's the bandwagon effect. That's clearly it's going along with what everybody else is saying. If your logic is everybody knows that, you might want to question that, or at least hold it up to a standard. Okay. That is the mistake people make is people talk about being in the bubble, or having a bubble of information when everybody is saying the same thing. Maybe there's some things going overlooked. Okay. As during World War II, there was the United States Army General George Patton. He used to say that if everybody's thinking alike, then it means somebody isn't thinking. Okay, you want to avoid that bandwagon effect. And then there's that overconfidence bias, relying too much on your own knowledge or opinion. It's failure to do research. It's failure to look beyond what you already think. Begin to think about those biases and see if you can do things to avoid them as you're beginning to do your research. Let's look at the long view for a second. Man, we're up to chapter 9 already. And Dr. Parrott in that one talks about the rear view mirror. We all have a history, but you learn from it. It provides a building block for the future, but doesn't necessarily predict your future. You're not limited to your history, but it's something you should be learning from. Okay. And then we also have vision. That's looking out over the horizon and anticipating what comes next. We have the ability to do both. I would never try to drive my car, though, by driving through the rear view mirror. I need to look out through the windshield. I need to look at what's coming at me. But my experience as a driver in things when I've driven in the past tell me how to interpret things and adjust for what I see coming over the horizon. And that's what Dr. Parrott is talking about in chapter 9. We're going to skip chapter 10 and go to chapter 11. I love that quote. An unexamined idea is always a bad idea. Okay. Go back to critical thinking. Examine your own ideas. Do your own ideas meet a standard? Could you question your own ideas? Let them be examined by others. Okay. Have the courage to let others examine your ideas. Okay. And if somebody else adopts your idea, that's fine. Let's go back to that idea of leadership. You don't necessarily want to force your ideas on them. People react negatively to having ideas forced on them, but they enthusiastically participate with ideas that they are able to adopt voluntarily. So critically examine your own ideas, see how strong they are, and see if they hold up or if they need to be changed. All right, end of this unit. You've got some reading assignments to do. Some of them are available online and through Canvas and other sources. One of them is available through the Belhaven Library, the book on critical thinking. I want you to look at. Answer your discussion questions and look ahead at Unit 5. You have a group assignment that's due next week. We're going to be getting into worldview. Let's take we'll take a look at that. Go ahead and be getting together with your group. Maybe you've already touched base with your group members. If you haven't yet, this is the time you want to do that. In fact, do it right now, and we'll see you next week.